Now move on to the next part of our problem, which is easier, relatively easier, which is basically we have tried this macro. Oh, okay. Now next part, we try to create two separate files. One file containing a macro, which we call it as CS47 underscore macro.asm, and then we'll copy the main code in the exp3 and with an inclusion of that macro. All right, so we'll do that, and then we expand the macro definition for the other system calls like readint, printer agent. I'll explain that. Okay. So let's get back to that our experiment 3 uh, before I explain those other two macros that we need to implement. So here is our experiment 2 where all the macros are defined on the same source code. Now we open, let's say I have this experiment 3 as well. So now see, I have like two files, exp3.asm and cs47 underscore macro.asm. So let's open exp3.asm. It basically first line, it include this file from, of course, this current directory. You can make an absolute path for that and so on and so forth. But yeah, somewhat it include that cs47 underscore macro.asm, and rest of them is same as your exp2. This part is same as your exp2, like no change, right? So and so that like exp3 becomes like really smaller in footprint, like only like couple of like 13 line long with all my comments and stuff like that. And all these macros I defined in this file, cs47 underscore macro.asm. Let's open that as well. So this is nothing but your first part of the exp2. First part I just copy paste into this. So this is now important that you create this file cs47 underscore macro.asm, and then in successive programming assignments we will go and add different macros as we go for different assignment and need. For our, even in our project we'll be using cs47 underscore macro. So it is very important that you keep that file around and you keep on adding the correct macros into it so that we can reference to it in our main programs. Okay, so now let's compile, sorry, not compile, assemble it, and it basically will create you the same set of instruction as it is, no change. You can run it, it will give you the new answer. Maybe, well, I should clear it first and run it, like, yeah. So basically it's the same program. We are just doing an organization changes, code changes, and split up my main implementation, and wherever the macros, my macros are defined in a separate file, and we're including that file into my application program. So that's the difference between exp2 and exp3. Now let's get back to what we need to done further on top of this cs47 underscore macro.asm file. Let's have two read underscore int and print underscore reg underscore int. Okay. So what does it do? It does like read an integer from like a terminal, like from the console or terminal, and move it to the variable as we want to. Okay, let's say we say read underscore int within round braces $t0. So what will happen, you need to use a system call for reading an integer. I believe its value will be returned in $v0. then move the value from $v0 or copy the value from $v0 into that the argument we pass into this macro. So macro has to be generic. It has to be like $arg or $rage name or something like that as an argument name. And when you are using that macro, you pass that argument as T0 or maybe S0, S1, so that it will read in from the prompt, from the console, and put the value, whatever you typed in, integer value, into that target variable that you mentioned in the readint program. Print reg int is also like it picks up, you pass on register or variable, you can say right now, like $S0 or $T1, like arbitrary some variables. You pass it to it, it picks up the value from that register or that variable and prints that onto the screen, right? So far till XP3 what we did, we actually print a constant there, right? We print a 5, integer 5 or something like that. Now we want to print a value stored inside a variable, which we later will start calling it that register, but for timing take it as a variable. So we pass a variable into this print reg int macro, and the code has to be expanded in such a way that it picks up the value from that specified variable and print that value onto the screen. So these are the two things you need to do. I think this is your programming assignment number 1 for this class. That's all for this SPIM simulator. So what we did, we got introduced with the SPIM simulation environment, Mars IDE, couple of basic programs. We looked at some operating system like support from our simulator, which enables us to print string, print values onto the screen. And also there are system calls to exit from the program. There are system calls to take input through the keyboard. So we'll be exploring that more in our programming assignment 1. And then that kind of start a baseline for our next successive programming assignment. So we keep that CS47 underscore macro.asm. Like we'll be using that for throughout this semester. We will be adding more and more macros to it as needed as we go for your programming assignment and maybe also for your like project. Okay. So that's all. If you have any questions, comments, concern, please send me email or you can ask me in the class.